We've got
Hey, this is Luis.
I'm
Luis. And you're listening to the Content is Profit podcast.
So, how do businesses and creators like us who did not cheat with hacks and tactics and don't want to be stuck in the content wheel of death? How do we build a modern media team and profit from our content?
In this creators economy, pre-filled templates and content calendars have become the solution for those that are not willing to put in the work and build a real business. Those that get rewarded are the ones that create and control their own process.
That is right. Content can be a distraction or your biggest lever. Here, you will learn to develop the systems to create consistently, build trust with your audience, and get the attention of those that are willing to give you money.
Go to contentisprofit.com to get started today and join the community. Let's go.
We don't have the clapping sound. Yeah, so we gotta do it ourselves.
It's okay. I know that was your homework, FONZI, for today, but let's explain a little bit why we don't have the clapping sound.
Wait, before that, today's topic, we're gonna be talking about the state of podcasting, starting the first podcast rental space in North Florida.
Let's go!
I'm so excited. This is gonna be
I feel like Logan Paul because they always do this stuff over here. Logan Paul, yeah. We're so excited. Okay, why do we have? Okay, well. Should we go into that or like there's other stuff? Do we have a sponsor today?
You're so confused today.
I know, so confused. Out of the element. But today's sponsor is Podcast Suites. The first, is it the first? Yeah, the first podcast rental in North Florida. Amazing customer service, incredible people over here. And you'll meet somebody very special today, but incredibly thankful for allowing us to come in here and record the show. And of course, if you want to find out a little bit more about what we do, just reach out on social media. There's no time for that today.
I know, I'm so excited to share. Let's get this party started right now.
All right. Special episode alert. Today, we are in a different studio for the first time ever, and we have a great friend here with us. Fun fact, he's our podcasting secret weapon. He's the go-to expert when it comes to these things.
That is right. Today's guest has been in the broadcasting industry for 40 years. Yes, 40. Let's say he knows what he's doing, right? And after working for the radio for decades, he decided to venture on his own and build the first podcast studio in North Florida.
Epic! And if you have been wondering if you should get into podcasting or if this is the right move for your business, this conversation is for you. Today's guest will help you understand the podcasting panorama and find your brand sound.
Look at that, we're using big boy words today.
Yes!
Let's get this party started. Please welcome founder of Studio Podcast Suites, the man of the hour, Gary Spurgeon!
Hey, let's go! Welcome!
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited, Gary. Thank you.
There we go.
Gary, first of all, man, this space is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
I'm not gonna lie. This is episode 196, and I'm now getting used to. Do I look at the camera or do I look at the real person next to us?
Well, the camera is our audience, so we can talk to the audience, and then we can talk to our guests right here.
And we can go back and forth.
Back and forth.
The magic of technology, isn't it?
I know, it's amazing, Gary. But we've been friends now, I would say, for like 2 years.
Yeah, it's been great.
About 2 years. But for those that are watching right now, and they're asking themselves, who is this amazing Gary? Who's this podcasting secret weapon, right? How did everything start? I mean, you've been 4 decades in the broadcasting industry. 40 days, sorry.
40 days? 40
decades.
4 decades.
Yeah, I had hair back then, by the way. You know, and I apologize for all the fans out there, or your fans, but the glare is going to be brutal.
Yeah. 4 decades in the
Wear your sunglasses,
industry.
people. Wear your sunglasses.
I was going to wear mine.
How did this all started? How did you get into that industry? And then what was that transition to what you build here today? Studio Podcast Suites.
Yeah, it was interesting. You know, I kind of fell into broadcast radio back in the day. Actually, I'm going to date myself right now. I started actually in 1979. It was one of those things. What do you do when you go to college? I always tell people, what am I going to take, right? So I went down to the University of Miami in the music program, which I was, and then I went back north in Pennsylvania, where I grew up, and went to a liberal arts school. And so I get into the school, and I said, okay, what am I going to take? Why don't we just take communications, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm up in the communications department. I walk downstairs, and on this bulletin board, radio station's looking for an overnight guy.
Yeah.
Never stepped into a radio station, the number one station in the marketplace, a top 40 station back then. And I applied and they hired me. Now, I couldn't talk on the radio at that time, but I had to make it sound live with all this old style equipment.
Yeah.
Now today we have all this fancy technological equipment to edit.
Yeah.
This is how old I am. I'm just kidding around. I actually edited tape. Edited reel-to-reel tape and cut it up with splicing machines and all that. But that's how I kind of fell into it. I started out as a jock or a talent on the air. I went to another radio station after that and started working 7 to midnight and then mornings and middays, and then realized that those guys at the radio station, which I kind of fell in love with the business, the guys with driving the nice cars were in sales.
You're like, who has those nice cars?
Wow,
Let me
you
go
know?
get, yeah.
So the other guys had the talent, were great people, but they had all these beaters, so we had to change that. So I applied for a sales position, and I got it, and was in it for a very short time in the sales realm. I then decided, well, I want to get into management, and one thing led to another. I was a general sales manager at the ripe old age of 24. Yeah. And then the magic happened, and 2 years later, I got the first general manager position. I was the youngest general manager in the United States in a top 50 market, and I was 26 years old. And I really haven't looked back since. I've been blessed. You know, I traveled all over the United States. Thank you. And I've run small market, medium market, and major market radio. Most recently, Dallas and Houston.
Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
This is absolutely amazing. Gary, I have so many questions.
Before you start, because
okay, go ahead.
then he starts asking questions and then game over. I don't speak for the rest of the podcast.
I'm not gonna ask a question right now. I just wanna pinpoint something that you mentioned.
Sure.
Right? You were like the nice people. The people that have the nice cars are the ones that are in sales.
Yeah. Right.
Right. And I just wanna pinpoint that because whatever you're doing now, especially like if you're trying to start your own business, you need to get into sales, right? That has been probably my personal biggest hurdle with everything in the business, because I'm very passionate about the technical aspect of things, about learning and teaching. But at first we have a lot of, what we call false beliefs here about sales, right? But you're mentioning, and this is so crucial, and actually yesterday I saw this social media post, right? This guy that was talking about sales, he got into a taxi going to the airport to jump in his private jet, and the taxi driver is like, oh, cool, so what do you do? And he's like, oh, I got a software company. So the taxi driver asked him, so you know how to code? And he's like, no, I don't know how to. And I also have a real estate company. Oh, so you know how to do construction? No. Oh, and I also have this other company and this other company, but I don't know how to do any of that. And the taxi driver is like, so how did you get to have all these companies? It's like, because it doesn't matter what I do, I know how to sell it, right? And that is so important. So lesson number 1 of today: whatever you are doing, whatever your passion is, you need to learn how to sell it. Not just for the nice cars. I mean, if you want to have a nice car, cool. Yeah. But if not, your business is not going to take off ever.
Yeah, well, not only that, not only in sales, you got to have some business acumen as well. Yep. So you got to understand that magic. And, we're dealing with people all the time, right? Yeah. And I know there's some introverts and extroverts. And I got to tell you, that whole thing is hokum, or I use hokum. That's a bad word, but it's an old world. But the thing is this, people think you have to be an extrovert to be in sales, and you really don't. I know a lot of introverts that are amazing salespeople, but the bottom line is we're in a people business, right? And we're gonna have conversations like you guys do every week. So it's all about, there's one, I guess, what's the best word I can phrase that I learned a long time ago? Your success is directly proportional to the number of different people you meet on a daily basis. That's it.
Hey, bam, 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 bam. No, gong moment. Yeah,
gong
okay,
moment.
there
That's
we go.
A gong moment.
There you go.
That is so cool. I actually read a book right now about networking. Yeah. And you know how you hear the phrase all the time that is like, it's not what you do, is who you know. So now this book added a new layer to that phrase for me, which was, it's not what you do, it's who you know that knows what you do. And then add that, the amount of people that you're meeting on a daily basis. That's a winning formula.
The more touch points that you can have and say hello to somebody, look them in the eye, or even have a conversation. Yeah, now we're not going to dismiss social media because that's what we're doing, right? But once again, sometimes social media can be unsociable. You've got to have that connection with people. So, just saying hello, and actually, guys, that's how you and I met. We met in our old space over there, and one thing, we set a conversation, and I'm, that's how I'm blessed, because I get to meet people like you through my, just from walking down the hall.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And glad you mentioned social media, right? Because we talk about the extrovert theory, and it's like, hey, social media enhances that at some degree, right? And that's why the word social, it's in there. But we're huge fans. Like, the reason we continue with the show and we're reformatting just a tiny bit for a different kind of experience live, but is the main priority is developing the relationship. It's like, okay, how can we have these incredible conversations every single week? Because we don't only get to improve our day-to-day, like we improve theirs day-to-day, right? Because we're giving them the promotion, whatever like what's a win for them as well. And then this relationship just grows out of that. If something comes out, we've had relationships that we started at the beginning of the show that then we continue the conversation, and then 7, 9, 8 months later, 10 months later, something incredible happened where we were just talking about like, hey, should we open this cafe like / co-working / podcasting studio together?
Sounds like a plan.
It sounds like a plan. I'm just gonna put it out there to the universe. So if you're interested, let us know.
So if you got some capital, you want to invest in this project,
sure,
just
come our way.
Bring it over.
A cafe and podcast studio. Why not?
How epic is it? Hey,
live audience,
live shows,
live shows.
Have a window there. Let them see you.
That'd be so much fun.
Just saying.
Let's do it.
I'm just saying, kaboom. We need a kaboom sound.
But yeah, how I got here. But we're talking. That was my broadcast career. So I semi-retired. I was still. I semi-retired. I laugh, and then we were doing a lot of research in broadcast radio. Because radio was using podcasts and starting to get into it. But then I started thinking, hey, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I didn't like some of the quality, and still today it bothers me when I see some of the, it's all about content. Yes, we can't get away from that. But another thing, it's all about the quality of sound. So because of my broadcast background, and I've built out some big radio stations in Dallas and a few other places around the country, I wanted to have great equipment. And I think what I realized was as I did this research, there was no place for the average business or the hobbyist to say, hey, I want to start a podcast, but it's overwhelming, as you guys know. I mean, what equipment do I buy? What microphones? How do I edit? So I put all this together and said, let's come up with this concept. Nobody is doing it here in Jacksonville, Florida. And gosh, opened the first small studio over there, and look where I'm at today. 2 studios.
I love it. By the way, for those like watching and listening now, like when we met, Gary was like, I think you were moving into the space, and it was like a very maybe it was a 10 by 10.
That was it.
But that's it with a square table, and then as soon as we walked in there, we're like, because we had our studio in our office space too, like we call it studio, but like our podcast location,
or wall.
So we walked in, we're like, what? Like the immediate.
You could smell the quality.
You could taste the quality, right? And we're like, wow. And that's such a great solution, right? Because a lot of people are wanting that presence online, right? And then what's stopping them is those friction points of, what equipment should I get? Like, what the thing? Like, and for us, we've shared this story many, many times, but that's a massive one, right? Because like, what if I get the wrong equipment? And honestly, guys, like, come to Gary, but like, if you want to get started in your thing, like your phone is enough. But if you want the quality, if you want the things, like obviously, equipment does matter. And we were very lucky that we ended up with this board actually, like the very first time.
It was funny. We both looked at each other and said, "Look, we've got the same board."
The same board, and it's still the same. We haven't updated software, nothing. Like, and that thing runs beautifully, right? And we were very lucky in that sense because we invested that money, But when we saw your solution, we're like, wow, there's so many people out there that do not publish, do not put their message out there because that's stopping them, right? And you provided that solution, which is incredible way to find the market, listen to the market, which are principles that we talk every single day in the show and in our group. So I commend you for that, man. Like, thank you. And now, what's the after, right? The after.
I command you or I commend you?
Commend you.
Yeah, command me.
I command you, Gary, to commend you. Wow, Fonzie.
Language barrier.
My English is not very good looking.
So not only that, then we talk about microphones, but then how do people, what really amazes me, how do I get my podcast hosted out on all the different sites? And people have to understand that process. And what else do you need? People don't realize you need a piece of artwork. So we have a 360 process. What I want people to come into my studio, that a lot of them do come in and they say, hey, Gary, I want to come in, do my content, and just leave.
Yeah.
You do everything else, put it all together. So we do professional intros, and, from a price standpoint, it's very affordable for everybody. Yeah. But, my clientele, I'm truly amazed with my clientele here in Jacksonville. I mean, I have the likes of Johnson & Johnson Vision. That is a massive company. Yeah, and I have I love it. I have this guy, he's amazing. He does a hip hop show.
Yes.
Des is so great, and he does a news hip hop show every week. So I go that spectrum, and that's what the type of people. Met a lot of really great people during this.
I think there should be a podcast suite in every city in the United States. Just gonna put that out there. I don't know. Are you franchising this? Where are we doing?
I've had some. I just had a guy in here last week said, "You got to do this. You got to bring this down to Orlando because I have." He goes, "I got to have a space like this."
Yeah.
Because the dogs aren't barking, the kids aren't crying. You know, the ambulances aren't zipping by. You know, so it looks good, and people feel comfortable bringing guests in here just because of the space.
Absolutely.
So I want to get back into a little bit of the history of broadcasting and podcasts. I love this, but the reason being is because you're talking about big companies are doing this podcast, and then you got the little guys that are doing podcasts as well, right? So obviously the barrier of entry for the podcasting world now is low, right? If I wanted a show in the radio, let's say 20 years ago, it probably would have been a challenge for me to get into the network, for them to accept me as a talent, maybe, give me a show, give me their time on their network to, share my voice, my opinions, whatever it was. So what is that evolution that you've seen? Like, why podcasting is so attractive right now? Like, what made you do that leap, right? Because you started this, what was it, 3 years ago, 4 years ago now?
No, actually, it's coming up on 2 years.
2
officially.
years ago.
Well, I started planning about a year prior to that, but 2 years I officially opened.
So what was that light bulb moment where you saw, wow, the broadcasting industry, the radio, right, as we know it, is changing, is transitioning. Let me get into this. What was it right there? What happened?
Well, when you said the word broadcasting, so the word is broad there. So when you're on a radio station, you're appealing to the masses, whatever market that you're in, or if you're on a network, the major network. The word podcasting, it's in the word podcasting. It's small and it's narrow, but I don't know if you guys are aware of this. You probably are. A commercial radio station is governed by is a federally run business. The FCC is involved with it. So there's restrictions of what you cannot say. Yeah. So one of the interesting things, this is a sense of freedom of what we do here. We're live on Facebook right now. We're live broadcasting. And I can actually say anything, and for the most part, and it's going out there.
Yeah. You can say
whatever
you want.
You can do whatever you want. So I think there's a sense of freedom, and I think that's why a lot of people are getting into it. The broadcast industry was moving towards it. They're trying to find their niche right now. But you know what? You guys live in the world. You can see the fact that there's some huge stars that have been made out of this podcasting. They started out small. Yeah. I have a friend here in Jacksonville, Florida. We've talked about him. If you want to see, if you love cruising, I'm talking boat cruising, go to cruiseradio.net. Not to give him a plug, but he has one of the largest in the world. Wow. And he's getting, the download. I mean, he's got 130,000 downloads per episode.
Incredible.
It's insane. But I think it goes to show you that you can build an audience, but you've got to focus on great content too.
Absolutely. So that audience, right? That's where my mind goes, where these broadcasting networks maybe had the advantage, which they had a broad audience, right? I mean, and they have the time slots in the radio where everybody maybe was driving to the job, and you got that prime time. You know exactly how many people are tuning in.
Yeah, drive time in the morning.
Yeah, right. I feel like podcasting is kind of like the bootstrapping radio, where you are like, where do I find my audience now? Right, so that is the I guess a unique advantage that radio has over a podcast per se.
Well, I guess another thing you got to realize, I think that's some of the challenge that I'm a passionate broadcast guy, always will be, but they're facing some challenges now. It's how we're consuming this media, right? Yeah. We only have so many hours in a day, right? Yep. So how are we consuming the media? Hey, look it. It's cutting into what they call time spent listening, or TSL, in the radio broadcast industry. And the big guys, the iHearts, the Odysseys, they're all aware of this. And the time spent listening is going down each almost on a yearly basis. So what are we doing? So here's the thing. Podcasting is actually cutting into it. Guys, I listen to about 20 plus podcasts per week. Sometimes I'll leave my house and I'll just put it on. And one thing great about it, this is an advantage. I can pause it when I'm done. I can pick up where I left off. Mm-hmm. So I can kind of, necessarily we can't do that with a radio station, right? And I love broadcast radio. There's such a localness and a spirit about it, which I will always have a passion for, what they've done for communities. But there's a space for this, and it's finding its space. Yeah.
I think, as we move forward in the years, right? Like, a lot of new distribution channels have been popping up, right? Like, we recently Clubhouse, like live audio interactions, right? There's a lot of people that feel very passionate about it. We were there in the space for a little bit. It didn't fit how we ran our things, and we're like, we're not gonna sit down and listen for 8 hours a day, right? Like that's just unthinkable. There are people that are really enjoying that thing. Okay, respect to them. But at the same time, as we move forward, there's gonna be new distribution channels, right? So, and I feel like with podcasting, the like Fonzie mentioned, and like you mentioned, right, the barrier of entry is very low. The fact that and I feel the element of freedom that you can be like, okay, I can talk about whatever I want, whenever I want, with whoever I want. That's so important, right? And then you can start attracting that audience, right? Or if you sell a service, you can have a conversation with the people that you deal with on a daily basis. You can develop these incredible relationships and the incredible freedom that you can to then do that, and then multi-purpose that for other distribution channels, because guess what? Your audience is not just gonna be like listening. Yeah, there's gonna be a part of it. We were talking about this last week. People are like, do you do the podcast side of things? Like, is what you do podcasting? Well, podcasting is a feature in the entire picture of what we do, right?
That's
because guess what? Podcasting is just a distribution channel. We talked to you about the radio thing. Like, we're like, can we make content is profit, like a format so we can actually sell it to the radios or do something in the radio, right? Like, because we see that as another distribution channel. Then there's the video aspect, the live aspect. That's another distribution channel. Social media, the micro assets that come out. So we see the show really as this whole thing. But the only reason that we can see as this whole ecosystem is because of that freedom that recording this whenever we want, however we want, and with whoever we want allows us to do. So, and then what you mentioned is the consuming side of things, because is how can you build a custom incredible experience for every type of listener, consumer, after the fact that you record this incredible conversation. So I think it's just a fascinating world that you can actually leverage. And if you are not doing it right now, you are crazy. Yeah. So yes, I'm
start a podcast. Start a video cast.
And if you're in Jacksonville, come to Podcast Suites. It's incredible. Yeah.
So here's another thing too. I think what amazes a lot of the clients that come in here is you're worldwide. You're just not in Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah.
I just had one in yesterday go, I cannot get over that I have my #1 listeners over in France.
Yeah.
One's in Asia, and he's going, I just can't get over that. Yeah. Why would somebody want to listen to me? But that's the freedom that this platform can offer people. I was telling you just before we came live on Facebook that the fact that one of my customers, a brand new one, is going to be almost like a radio station. She is going not only Facebook Live, Instagram Live, recording the podcast, she is going live streaming of the podcast worldwide on a streaming service. So it's almost like she's a morning drive person or morning personality, and now you can listen to her on live in your car, just like you do a radio station.
That is so cool. I think definitely the in-demand aspect of podcasts is huge, right? Yeah. The fact that, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, every time I jump in my car and the radio turns on automatically and it's on the radio, I put the volume on 0. I'm not gonna lie. I'm like,
it's okay.
And it's not because I don't like the radio. It's just honestly I haven't found it, and I haven't stayed listening long enough to find a program that I enjoy, right? But honestly, I put it on 0. I wait for my phone to connect to my car, and then I look for a podcast that I want to listen, that I feel like listening at the moment. Because I mean, if you see my feed, I have like, I don't know, 40 different podcasts in there that I enjoy. But I'm like, today I feel like I want to listen to, Gary's podcast, let's say. And I'm going to be like, I'm going to listen to that. I think the demand aspect of it, the in-demand aspect of podcasting is huge, right? Because in the radio, you don't have that access, right? You have whatever they're playing at the moment.
Right, because they're actually, you have to go to them and say, okay, look, I like that music. I'm going to sit and listen to it. But here you can have a choice, and you can have your own. Like I was listening to one last night, an amazing podcast on Apollo 13, and this guy was he's over from Australia. I was just blown away. It was a 6-part series. It was done last year. I just picked up on it because I'm a space nut. It was the most compelling thing I've ever listened to, and it had all the sound effects. It was like a theater
immersive story, and
just amazing about the whole Apollo 13 mission. They got stuck around the moon. They had to come back. It was the explosion. It was just incredible. And if I'm in a mood for something else, financial, I can turn my financial news on. I can consume what I need to consume. But again, we're going through 360 here. We got to be careful because there's so much media out there to consume. How do we spend the time to consume that media? And that's what I think every company is out there trying to figure out. And then monetizing it. We haven't even gotten there yet. I know we'll probably get there. People are, how do I make money with these things? You know?
So let's go. pre-making money is how do we market this podcast?
Hold
right?
on, before I got curious, like how many cities we were on when you guys were talking about that in just a second. So, like you said, like podcasting is global, right? Like we're two kids, like originally from Venezuela. We are here in Jacksonville, Florida, right? And when we put this out there, we never really thought it was gonna, grab that traction. We're like, let's just do it because everybody's telling us, like our mentors, everybody's like, and let's build relationships,
and
right?
For us, it was like, let's meet cool people, right?
let's just meet cool people, yeah. And
well, then you shouldn't be interviewing me. I'm just
you're too cool. You were too cool for us. By the way, the truth, guys, like, it's been 195 episodes asking him to do this thing, and he's like, no, guys, no, too much.
He's doing us a favor. He's doing us a favor being here.
But yeah, and then audience, like we shared this on the show before. I think it was the first 6 months we saw no numbers. We're like, let's execute 3 times a week live, and let's not look at numbers because a lot of people stop because they're like, hey, I might not be grabbing initial traction and so. So I just wanna like after I was just curious. This is the first time I see this in like probably 6 months, So 64 countries.
Look at that.
We're in 64 countries, guys. Good job. Top, United States. Shout out to United States. United Kingdom comes second. Canada comes third. And then France. So apparently a lot of people from France. Yeah, look at that.
Fans.
Je parle français.
Parlez-vous français?
We shout out to France. Venezuela,
you
where are
guys
you
do
at,
an interesting
man?
French accent with that little Hispanic flair to it.
Yeah, let's go. Cities. You ready for this?
Let's go.
947 cities, guys. Congratulations.
Wow.
Almost 1,000 cities. Jacksonville, Florida coming up top. Shout out to everybody
Look
in
at
Jacksonville.
that.
Blue Springs, Missouri, Jacks Beach, Rocky Mount, North Carolina, Ohio, Virginia, and then France again. So
are we gonna do a Content is Profit live tour around the states?
The worldwide tour.
The worldwide tour.
We're announcing it today, everyone.
So yeah, and I just wanna put this out there, right? Like podcasting and this platform has been the cornerstone of our business since COVID started, right? Because we lost a lot of business, and I think we're about to hit like total 13,000 downloads, right? And sometimes there's people out there 150,000 downloads and so on, but this platform has allowed us to, and this is why you don't pay attention to numbers, right? Allow us to scale our business for more than 6 figures a year in less than 6 months. We're about to hit, almost the $250,000 in sales, hopefully this year. Like, we're on track to do that. We built a team, 8 people, right? So again, not flexing. I just want to put a little bit of perspective because a lot of people focus on the downloads, right?
I agree.
And every time people are like, oh, you have a podcast? How many downloads? I'm like, enough. Like, it doesn't matter. For us, that's not the objective. It will grow with time, absolutely. Yeah. But I just want to paint the picture that even with that, you can find the right people to then transform that into business, right? And I think that was the transition.
Yeah, I'm going to give you 2 good examples of that. I think that's the problem. People get spun around and lost in like how many downloads, and they feel, I'm not getting enough downloads, or we would consider likes. It's not good. I got to tell you, I have a guy in here that comes in here. He doesn't have a ton of downloads, but the connections that he's made and these one-on-ones. He has a commercial real estate show, but he's look at these connections I'm making here in Jacksonville, the conversation that we're having, and the content he can put out there. Really interesting people that he's bringing in. So you have that. I have a company called RF Smart that comes in here. They're amazing. They're an inventory management company. They have the scanners. They make them. They're here in Jacksonville. Wow. One of the greatest people that work with, and her name is Sarah Archer. Sarah Archer is becoming a little, and I use this, a star in her space, but it's gone more than what they've even anticipated. Her and I have had some wonderful conversations about it. Who would go to an inventory management? I mean, inventory controls.
Yeah.
But the people in the warehouse would be interested. Absolutely. And now they're getting calls. They're saying, hey, look, I saw your podcast. The guys in the warehouse, I'm interested in that product. Now they're getting sales, and that was never the intent of this. So those connections that you make and the conversations you're having, they interview a lot of their customers.
Yeah. I think it goes to the attachment of that lack of knowledge, right? A lot of people, when they hear podcasts, You usually start by listening to the big podcast, right?
Joe Rogan. If I hear Joe Rogan, I wish I had $1 for every time somebody wants to be Joe Rogan.
Oh, Joe Rogan.
I'd be a millionaire.
And you hear the sponsorships, right? It's like, this podcast is presented by blah, 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 blah. And I think that's where people goes in. It's like, that is the only way you could monetize a podcast. That is the only way. No. Let's not say just monetize. That's the only way you can leverage a podcast, get something out of it, is with sponsorship, right? So I think that's why a lot of people go and ask, what is your download number? How many people listen to you? But for us, honestly, I I thought like that at the beginning before diving into the podcasting world. I was like, okay, well, we need a lot of people so we can find a sponsor, X, Y, and Z. And then it got presented to me the opportunity that maybe it's about the relationships that you build.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's about.
What are the opportunities that are opening when you meet somebody, right? And we were talking about that at the beginning, sales, right? It's about meeting new people, getting those touch points. Guess what? Podcasting allows you to do that. Allows you to open new doors by meeting new people.
Well, I think another thing people don't realize, I think they hear all these numbers, these big numbers like the Joe Rogans.
Yeah.
So people don't understand this. If you actually have a client who just started a podcast 4 weeks ago, okay, they're going to they're going to top 2,600 downloads in 1 month, right? Then they're down. They're like, I go, are you kidding me? You guys are moving faster than the speed of light. Do you know that they're in the top 5% of all podcasters? Yeah. People don't understand that. There's this misperception out there. So, hey, look at your logo behind us. I love that. Look at you guys. You know what I ask when people come in here and just say, let's have a conversation about podcasts, because I teach them the process, right? Is what's your goal, number one? And do you want to have fun? Let's have some fun. That's all this is. Let's have some fun. If you bring some knowledge in it, if you're an inspirational speaker, let's do that. But you know what? Don't get lost in the numbers and go down that rabbit hole.
Something interesting happened when you start doing this, right? Like if you're a newbie, like we were newbies when we first started doing this, and you started finding these thought patterns, idea patterns, right? You start learning also from other people, right? If let's say you take on the reporter role, which is the one that we took to launch the first, after the first 20 episodes.
I mean, we still kind of have that reporter role.
We haven't moved from that, right?
Yeah.
Like, and we have requests of people like, we want more of you guys, more of you too, right? And we're like, well, that's not the objective of the show, right? Like, we have to be very clear. The objective of the show is develop the relationships. Guess what happens is an audience is developing on one side, right? And then we can put in those thoughts, those frameworks, those ideas that we express, right? Today I went live after I don't know how many months, right? And we're known a little bit to go live many times. And I had this idea in my head of a pressure cooker, or like how do you cook rice, right, in this pot, and the pressure builds in, and then when you lift the lid, all that pressure gets out, right? When you're like boiling the water. And I had that idea, and I related it to a very like situation that's been happening with us for the last 3 months, where there's a lot of pressure that has been put on us, on the business, and to move forward, right? And I'm like, when you open the lid, you remove that pressure, right? And then, but the lid's still on. So recently, for me, the act of removing the lid in my business is talking to my parents, talking to my mentors, writing it down, right? Fonzie has his own process. I'm like, okay, what is your process of removing that lid? Something like that doesn't come out of the blue. It comes out after practicing, after having these conversations, after experiencing other ideas from other people, right? And guess what? After you start doing that very often, you're going to start becoming a thought leader in your industry, in what you do, in how you do it. And then you earned the right to actually go and teach about this kind of stuff. That's why sometimes we feel like, okay, maybe we're not quite ready for that. Maybe we are. Who doesn't, right? Who knows? But that's why we have a community. That's why we grab these thoughts and these ideas and these processes and put it in there for our style business, right? But I think it's so fascinating because this medium allows you to develop that as fast as possible, right? Because if you don't have that, how do you do that, right? And it's incredible because then the audience starts to attach to you, start to learn from you, you start seeing that impact, those results with what you're doing, with what you're saying. And ultimately you start making a better world, right? So
and you said something a minute ago about being a thought leader. I get a lot of podcasters that, like, I have an investment guy. He doesn't necessarily talk about investments, but he wants to become a specialist in his area, and so he's just using it as an extension of his brand. He's a family guy. He talks about recipes, and then he talks about, always ends on a little financial note, but he's not out there interviewing financial people. So he's becoming that. You said something about this medium. This is my little phrase. Podcasting is not a medium; it's a large.
Let's go.
I love it. I wish we had the horn right now.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
There you go.
So okay, let's go to marketing podcasts, right? Monetizing podcasts. I'm curious to kind of like compare the both sides of things on the radio, how it used to be, let's say 30 years ago.
Or even today,
right? And podcasting. So what were some of the marketing methods that the radio shows were using to reach new audiences, right? To get the word out there that maybe can either translate or we can learn the principles behind them
Well,
so
once
we can
again,
use for the podcast?
That's a great question, but there's two things you got to remember. Radio is different than podcasting. So radio is in a specific market. We're here in Jacksonville. We have our group of radio stations. They're not trying to market themselves in L.A. or any other place. They're here. So their goal is to garner as much ratings they possibly can. The way it works in broadcast radio, the higher the ratings you get, the more you can charge for your commercials, and that's where they make their money in that commercial time. Which, and I'm not going to get off on this tangent, but that's what's destroying radio. There's too many commercials in a break. I say, you know why this finger's shorter than that finger there? Because you push the buttons too much. so the reason is that, but it's their own fault. It's the industry's own fault. They started adding more commercials, and you're not going to sit through 5 minutes of commercials, 10. You're going to tune away. You want to come back. But again, you're talking podcasting, how to monetize. Believe it or not, next to that is like the number one question answer is how do I get downloads, and then how do I monetize? Honestly, if I had the answer, I could be a gazillionaire right now. You guys, this is what you guys do for a living. This content is profit. And I think you've got something very, very special there. And I tell them, look at your social media. It's everything that you're doing. You've got to have video. You got to have your YouTube channel. You've got to have your podcast. You got to have your website. It's the 360 experience. What you guys do on a day-to-day and a week-to-week basis, what you're doing now, this doesn't happen like that. You guys, you had an amazing planning tool that you guys sent me, right? That's what people is. If you want to make this a career and do what you're doing, there's planning and preparation. You don't. Yeah. Joe Rogan didn't become Joe Rogan overnight. That's misperception.
Like 9 years doing what he's doing.
And before that, he was doing other things too.
More than 3,000 episodes, just so you know, like a little bit reference there, right? Like 3,000 episodes.
So one a day, that's how it's 10 years, right?
That's what I'm telling you.
Like, about it. Yeah.
10 years.
Wow, that's incredible.
So I don't have the exact answer. You guys may have a better answer to that than I can answer to folks. It's like, it's you've got to use your social media. Also, you've got to bring people in with great guests that maybe they have some social media and bring a good guest in and say, hey, will you share this on your media? Yep. So if you're going to get exposure, it's this connections that are going to do it. Yeah. Or if you've got the money, boost them. You know that better than I do.
I mean, I think people see it as like these things like rocket science, right? And they put so much pressure into it. But honestly, it's hard work. Promote a podcast, promote yourself, your business is hard work. Yeah. It requires resources, whether that is time or money, right? I mean, if you want to speed things up, money.
And people, right?
And people, absolutely. So and this is totally hypothetical because I'm not 100% sure about the radio world, but I see the talents were just the talents. They weren't probably in charge of, let me go to this market right here and make noise, go listen to my show 6 a.m. in the morning in the station 92.9, whatever, right?
You're right.
I don't feel like, but now the podcaster has to be the promoter as well. So
as the talent, they have to be the talent, the promoter, the marketer. You don't have this whole team behind you. When you get to some levels, like I'll go back to Joe Rogan again. He has a team. Somebody said 20, 30 people.
Wow.
Well, maybe that. Yeah, but it's my studio. It's just me and some part-time people that can help me out now and again. Yeah, just like you guys, right?
But it goes back to the principle of the publishing pyramid, and we can revisit that here in a second. But what we tell people usually is like, try to keep it 1-to-1, right? Which means it's a ratio, right? The time you spend creating should be the same amount of time that you spend promoting. So imagine it is the 1800s, right? There were businesses and they had obviously no internet, no way to like go and promote rather than go and make noise, meet people, right? How do you promote in that set? If you had a bakery in the 1800s, you would go and find a circle of people, a group of people, right? And then you would go there and stand and tell them like, hey, are you guys hungry for something sweet and delicious? Well, I got my bakery right there. It's the same exact thing. That is the principle of marketing in the internet.
Well, let me jump in here. Yep. So think about this. We're in 2021 right now. I just want you to go back 20 years. Really, if you go back 20 years, we had three major network TV stations plus your public broadcasting.
Yeah.
Yep. You had the radio station, handful of radio stations in your marketplace, and you had your newspapers, right?
Yep.
really, and you had a couple of billboard companies, right? Other than that, if you were going to have a product or a business, you can advertise in those areas. Today, there's such a myriad of ways to go touch people. And I think you ask any marketer today or any business today owner in any city, they're so confused of what to do.
So, that's where I wanted to get.
Wait, before you get there real quick.
Sorry,
no.
He pulled the handbrake. He pulled the handbrake.
That's perfect. That's perfect. I just want to pretty much complete the idea so the listener here get the full image, right?
Okay.
Now is where are the people consuming information that could be interested in my show, right? In what I'm talking about,
right?
And just go and make noise there, right? And by making noise is add value, not just be like, hey, go listen to my podcast. Give them a reason to listen to your podcast. Create curiosity, right? What are they going to gain if they listen to your show? For example, we can go right now to a Facebook group, let's say Buzzsprout, right? And we can talk about, hey guys, we just had this incredible conversation on what is the transition that's been happening between broadcasting and podcasting, right? And we talked all about, how do you can monetize, how can you get started? Guess what? That is a group of people that are looking to start their own podcast. So they have a bunch of questions on how do I do all these things? Well, I'm giving them a reason to come and check out Content is Profit, episode 196 with the one and only Gary Spurgeon, right? And they're going to find value. They're already getting value in advance because they're like, oh, they are answering the questions that I already have in my head. So again, go find where these people are and promote. 1-to-1 ratio. The time you spend creating, look for us to spend the same time promoting. Now, Gary.
No, I was going to say, you keep saying the preparation is everything in the podcast world, and I think that's why people get into it. They're excited. I see that curve. That's like the honeymoon period. Man, I'm going to do my first 10 episodes. I'm so excited, and then they realize, wow, this is a lot of work. And it is. There's work. If you're going to invest in the time, if you're going to do a half hour, and that's all the questions. We can go through all the questions. How long is my podcast got to be? Yep. All the basic questions. But, you got to focus on the content. I'm impressed how many episodes you guys have and how you've continued to have that energy to do it. It's very hard.
Yeah, so...
I mean, there's a stat. I'm butchering a little bit. Oh, the 7-episode stat.
That's it, baby.
What? Yeah, it's like 80% drop off after seven episodes, or is it more?
Yeah, it's most people will drop off. How many? So I guess the question: how many podcasts are out there? There's so many different versions, right? Apple says there's 2 million, but there's only really 770 because they're starting to go through and people have 1 episode, 2 episodes, 3 episodes, and they quit. But after about 10, people say this is a lot different than what I anticipated.
Yeah.
If you have a passion for a subject matter, if you have a passion for one, then you can develop a podcast around that. Yeah. And the more niche you are, the better better you're going to be. The more people are going to come. If you go too broad, you can go and get that anywhere.
You said a word back there that's gonna tie nicely into this on how can you keep it consistent, right? Like, and the word that you said was confusion, right? And I was like, when you said it, I'm like, everybody else there is confused. Everybody, like even the people that we come and interview, like same thing, right? Nobody has it figured out, right? And when we say it, right, because we're 2 kids from Venezuela, right, that wear t-shirts, nobody believes us. But believe me, like we've had over 200 conversations now with very successful people, right? And it's the same thing. And what has been the indicator of all these people succeeding in whatever medium that they're publishing, right? In this case, right? Consistency, right? So that's the one thing, consistency. They have to be present.
Right.
Again, Joe Rogan. I mean, Joe, are you paying us commission for all the shoutouts that we're giving you? Because, 3,000 episodes, 1 a day, almost, right? He's being very consistent. For us, that was our main goal. How can we stay consistent, right? When we saw that, we're like, okay, how can we reverse engineer so we can actually produce it? So we started removing the friction, right? So one of the things that we talked with the people that have come into our community and our world is people are scared to tackle that challenge, right? Because first off, they're confused. They don't really know what they want, right?
Yep.
And then there's like, okay, all this crazy marketing going around. Go here, go there, go there. This is the golden goose, right?
Yeah.
And we've had so many conversations. They're like, if I knew what the golden button was like to print money, like I would be pressing it like non-stop, right? Like, and that's the thing. And yes, there's opportunities, but at the end of the day, it's like, okay, what are your resources? Is it just you? Is it you on a team? Like, what is it? Like, let's start understanding those factors so we can remove the friction and create execution and create consistent execution, right?
You keep using the word, that's it. It's all about consistency consistency, like you're going to drop on the same day. I don't care if you're doing 2 a month or one a week or one a day, but make sure you're dropping consistently and the frequency, and you do your research. But it all comes down to consistency and frequency.
Yeah, I go back to our first 20 episodes, right? We started just us, right? And I encourage everybody to go listen to those episodes and then come back on social media and tell us what you think. It's a
growth process.
It's a growth process.
It's a journey. People are saying this is a journey. No, I'm going to jump back to broadcasting. These people that are morning drive, afternoon drive, evening, that you listen to these talent, this is their career. They made it their career. There's a gentleman here in Jacksonville that's on the adult contemporary station here. His name is Arthur Crofton. Amazing morning guy. Been here almost 50 years.
Wow.
But he's been perfecting his craft for that long. I think people sit down to get a microphone. I'm going to be a star. I'm going to be a star. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You got it. And look at. I can tell you this right now, just from the last time we have, and I've watched your podcast over time, the growth that you've had in your interviews, the way you interview now, your growth in your talent. So you're growing your talent from your first one to this one, and you could probably see the growth yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm definitely
Means a
bigger,
lot.
in my waist. But it's okay. We've been working out, guys. We've been working. Just wait to my before and after picture. Thank you, Gary.
I called the COVID-15.
Yeah, COVID. Yeah, thank you for bringing that out, Gary. I appreciate it. But honestly, like. I was talking to my wife the other day, and we were talking about like what do we want to do kind of long term, right? And she's a pharmacist. She's in her thing, like she crushes it, right?
Yeah.
But me, I was thinking like, really, what do I really love? And we fell in love with this process. And we were talking to you before we went live. The ultimate goal is have the in-house BIZBROS studio and just have these incredible conversations here. Obviously, that's going to take resources. That's going to take time. So in the meantime, how do we get there, right? So I want to encourage you, the listener or the viewer, right? Like, what is your goal, right? Whatever medium that is, right? And if you pick podcasting, video, and then the question is, how can you leverage that to find those audiences that Fonzie was saying, like, what are those markets? What are those people? For us, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook are the main pods, the main groups of people. That's why we multi-purpose with that in mind. And guess what? Then we got to tackle, how do we monetize? How do we turn that content, into profit, right? For us, we sell a service, right? A higher ticket service, because guess what? Strategically, that gives us some wiggle room to make changes, make mistakes, continue to learn, continue to evolve, right? Continue to develop the product and the processes, right? So we're very big fans of that. But there are big companies like, for example, our good friends of Jacksonville Wealth Builders, right? Greg Cohen and Pablo and these guys. They were able to, I think it's like double or triple sales quarter after quarter after the launch of their show. Why? Because they have a community. They've been able to share these ideas, to communicate with big players in the city. They're buying the entire downtown through these relationships, right? To develop and create their vision. And at the same time, the audience that is coming in, that's interacting with them, are now purchasing not just one property, 2 properties, 3 properties. But guess what? They've been doing this for a year and a half, almost 2 years now. And it's like, okay, it's consistency, right? Attach it to your process, right? And then if you don't see results, start tinkling. Like, how do we change it? Like, what
you always got to pivot and move.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I'm going to use an old school analogy here. People, today we walk up to the stove in our house, turn it on, and there's heat, right?
Yep.
But the way I look at it, developing any brand, it takes time, right? So let's go back to the pioneer days when they had the old cast iron stove, right? Well, what they first had to do to get that thing fired up, they had to go chop the wood, right? They're chopping the wood up. They're chopping. There's a lot of work involved, right? Then they got to season the wood. Then they got to put the wood in the stove. Then they got to fire it up, and that takes time for it to heat up. It's not like you're just going to turn on the stove. This is what has to be done. I know that's an old school approach.
I love it,
but it's an analogy that people understand. It doesn't happen overnight. Another thing I want to say. We both worked in that same facility for about a year. One thing I did realize this: there were many hours that I'd come out of there at 10 o'clock at night with my customer, and you guys were still there. I'd be in there on weekends, and I was there Sundays, and you guys were there Sundays. If you want to start a business, it's a commitment level that you guys have got to really understand, and it's just not like. And if it's a podcast, that's great, but you've got to invest the time. Yeah, it's just not going to happen overnight.
Yeah, there's gonna be some levels of sacrifice there, and I don't know. I mean, I feel like I kind of know, but I don't know if it's 100% for this reason. But everybody's now is seeing in social media the success, right? But they don't see the journey of that success. So everybody's like, oh, I want these things quick, right? And they jump on it, and that's why they quick as fast as they jump on it, because they see something else that might, offer them a better solution to success, a better path to success, and then they go and try that. And honestly, the one consistent trait that we found in the people that we've interviewed that they've been successful is the consistency. That they've done whatever they're doing for a big amount of years.
And become an expert in that area. So maybe become a specialist in that area. Oh, by the way, I had to throw this in. It's my wife and I's anniversary. You brought your wife up.
Let's go.
Hey, my wife and I, Julie, 38
Shut
years.
up.
38 years today.
Yes.
Congrats. Consistency, guys. Consistency. Happy marriage.
Consistency.
Happy marriage,
Wow.
by the way, because we've met her.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've met her, and beautiful couple. Yeah.
That is amazing, man. And thank you for being here. For your anniversary, yeah.
Well,
Well,
it's his place, and you know.
Well, you know, if my wife would call in, she would tell a story, but a long time ago, I think it was our 15-year anniversary, and I'm a golfer, just so you do know. And there was one that I played 100 holes of golf on our anniversary. It was for a charity event, and I didn't see her all day. We started at 6 a.m. So you know, like the 5th is your wood, it's a diamond anniversary.
Yeah.
Our 15th was the golfing anniversary.
The golfing
I think
anniversary.
Wow.
That's right. So you wanna know my secret on how I'm always like not in trouble if I miss anniversary?
How you do that?
So we're legally married one day, and we had the wedding like 3 days later.
Okay.
So it falls like December 30th and January 2nd, right? Both dates. So if
Right.
I miss the 30th, I still have a chance to celebrate on the 2nd. You know. And
That's a win, though.
That's a win, but that's not a tip, honestly, because
well, not for you, for the people that are about to get married. You know,
That's actually a very strategic way of remembering your anniversary.
That was meant like that from the very beginning.
Yeah,
not
yeah.
really.
We digress. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have an alarm on my phone. Definitely, I'm gonna be like, on this day, remind me.
You will be in trouble. Yeah,
I will be in trouble.
Kitty doesn't really matter.
I forget. I'm gonna write it down on my
No
notebook.
paper.
But
Awesome.
let's go back to podcasting. We have to start wrapping up over
Yeah,
here.
no. Yeah.
I have one last question
Sure.
regarding the state of podcasting, and honestly, it's more let's throw a Gary V style, guest in the future. Where do you see podcasting going 5-10 years from now?
Well, I was asked that question when I opened my studio 2 years ago, but I think right now we're seeing an explosion in podcasting. There are so many people that want to get into the space. How to get into the space? Nothing. I knock on wood that in the fact that my business is just continuing to grow. People want to understand this and understand the industry, understand the podcast space. At this point, I don't see it going backwards, at least for 5 years.
Yeah,
I don't think it's somebody said, I think it reached its golden age. I said, we're not even I think the way I look at it, we're rolling the rocket out to the launch pad. We're just at the launch pad. We're in the middle of the countdown. We haven't even hit the launch sequence yet.
Yeah.
I think it's sky's the limit right now.
What do you think, Fonzie?
I agree 100% with Gary. I think a lot of people, I've seen it too, right? People diving into the space. I think they're just going to gain more listeners. The competition, of course, is going to get more intense, right, on how to succeed. So that's why it is important to not come into the space just thinking, I'm going to get sponsorship, right? A lot of these people that are jumping new into the platform, and they already get big deals like the $60 million 3-year deal that they did at Spotify, right, with one of the Barstool podcasts. That is because they already have an established audience.
And they've been publishing in other platforms
for years.
A long time.
Exactly.
And they developed their own brand. But
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you guys a question.
Yep.
So how many YouTube channels are out there? Do you guys know?
No, millions.
32 million.
32.
Wow.
Okay, how many podcasts are out there? We talked about it earlier.
Oh,
2
that's
million.
good.
But I want to say something. That's not active. Active around 700, about almost 800,000. Do you see the opportunity and the growth that's here?
Huge. Massive.
Yeah.
Massive.
And I always tell people I have a face for radio, so I'm not trying to. So here's the thing. That's why you could become a star just in podcasting if that's what you want, or become that specialist in podcasting.
Yeah.
So you just asked the question, where do we see it? I see there's. Why couldn't there be 32 million podcasts?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, guys, we gotta live in a world in a mindset of abundance. There's enough for everybody. There's people starting YouTube channels recently that are having success, that are tackling into their businesses if they have a business, right, and they're having success, they're growing, as a person, like they're helping people, and that's what's important, right? So if you're gonna start something, a publishing, we call it the publishing platform, call it podcast, call it video podcast, call it YouTube channel, right? Whatever you're starting, just make sure that it goes with your values, that you're helping people, that you're serving them, right? And then if you're transitioning into the business side of things, make sure that you're offering a result, that you're offering something that is worth paying for, right? So what do I see this just like you guys? Like I think it's growing. It's not even. I don't think it's even in the launch pad. Like to be honest, I think
maybe they're just rolling it out there. Is what I tell people.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's funny. We talked about this board that's right here, right? And you know, you can't get. I think they're in back order right now.
Yeah, it's insane because first it's such a great brand. We should all be affiliates with this thing because
we can say the name. I don't care. It's Rode, man. The Rodecaster Pro, great board.
I love everything Rode, honestly.
Anything like
These aren't, but it's okay.
Rode, send us some mics.
Send us some mics.
Just send us some mics. Yeah, the new ones they have out there.
Cool.
Yes.
So Gary, as we wrap up the show, a couple last questions.
Just gonna say this: in 10 years, we're gonna do a throwback where we're gonna grab this segment right here,
boy.
and we're gonna be like, "Hey, we said it,
We
guys.
said it.
We're gonna be brilliant, or we're gonna be like an okay."
Exactly.
I loved how you paint the picture with YouTube and this, right? And YouTube is fairly newish, like what, 15 years ish.
I don't even know when it came out.
2005, I think, is when YouTube came
So
out.
16 years, right? And I'm currently in the process of kind of reading that Daryl Eves.
Daryl Eves.
Is like the #1 YouTube expert, right?
Yeah,
and
you've been reading that book for like 6 months.
I know. I skipped. I went to Steve Sims because he was on the show and the blue fishing and the incredible. Anyways, but he's saying that, right? Like the platform has evolved in 15 years and still they think is at their infancy because of the amount of people that are moving into these platforms, right? And now we're seeing YouTube creators, like I was listening to the podcast, Logan Paul and KSI. These are two YouTube creators, massive YouTube creators. They're both invested more than $100,000 in their podcast teams, right? That says a lot about this platform is because they're not just like monetizing it, but they're tackling, they already had an audience, but at the same time, they're tackling into new audiences. So guess what? This is the time for you to start this platform, right? So if you're here local from Jacksonville, because we saw that you're #1 city, following us the show, come to Podcast Suites and get in touch with Gary. But before we give the contact info, two last questions, very quick.
Sure.
One is like, what will be your #1 action point for those people wanting to produce something, wanting to get into this world and that are in the business, trying to figure out their thing?
Yeah, #1 would be do your research before you get into the game. If you're going to do it from your home or your business, make sure you have the facilities and the equipment to do it right. I'm not just selling the studio podcast suites like I'm doing, but there is an opportunity. And if you don't have the technical expertise, know this. You're going to have to find somebody that's going to do your editing, background music, royalty-free music. There's so many little different points, but talk to somebody in the business. One of the things I offer here in Jacksonville is I have a studio tour and consult that they can come in with me for 45 minutes and we will handhold them through the process and it's an education. I should charge for it, but I don't. I just want to help people.
Yeah.
We should come and see what's up because I don't know. We have a lot of ducks in the row. We crush consistency for sure, but we're like we're probably gonna see like improvement here, and that's okay. That's totally okay.
I actually have an action point. Is just go to Gary's website.
Yeah, that's it. Easy peasy.
Yeah, it is studiopodcastsuites.com. Studiopodcastsuites.com.
There you go.
Go check them out.
Yeah.
And Gary, I actually wrote down this earlier in the conversation, right?
Okay.
I put that you need just an education platform online where now people all over the world, right? They're going to be like, I want to learn more about all these technicalities, how to do it maybe myself, or how to kickstart it so then we can send Gary all the files and he can take care of all the goodness, right?
And if they have video, he'll send it to us.
I'm gonna outgrow both my studios.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I think you're ready to conquer the world. Hopefully, we're there right beside you and helping in any way possible. Now, last question of the show, our favorite question of the show.
Okay.
It's is your favorite dog a Chihuahua? No, I'm kidding.
It's a Labrador Retriever.
No.
I was gonna be like, dude, you and your dad jokes. What's happening over here?
I know you tried it last show and nobody laughed. We had that with Ben last night. Anyways, Gary, we'll talk about this after.
Okay.
Last question: where would you be without publishing?
Where would I be without publishing? Oh my gosh, I can't even tell you where I would be. Probably nowhere, because I'm not getting the word out and I'm not talking to people, I'm not having conversations and seeing people face to face, I'd be nowhere without publishing.
Interesting.
Nowhere.
Thank you. I'm looking at you, audience.
I'm
nowhere.
curious. Where would you be if you didn't join a broadcasting company 40 years ago?
Gosh, I have no idea because I fell in. That's a great question. I don't know. I really don't know because I fell in love with the business. It was a different world, just like everything was that many years ago. Broadcasting was so much fun. It was crazy world. It was nuts. And we were doing so many different things. But, as it got bigger and a consolidation happened, bigger companies took it over. We kind of lost there. There's a lot of the fun aspect that went away. Yeah. But I just my goal in life is to work a company, work with people that want to have fun, are passionate about what they do. And I keep saying the same thing. If you're not enjoying what you're doing, move on to something else. Have fun. Just have fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you cannot have a beer with your clients, then you're probably in the wrong business.
Well,
or if you don't drink
coffee,
coffee or tea, whatever your preference.
Clients become, more than clients. They become friends.
Yeah.
There is a relationship that becomes out of it. Yes, you still have that professionalism, but they become a part of who you are.
Absolutely.
To wrap up, we have a funny story with Monica Tanner, one of our guests, right?
Yeah.
Like we had we had an incredible connection on the show, and then we ended up going to her city, and we had no idea, right? So we were in this clubhouse room, and she's like, "Oh my God, I'm in this city." I'm like, "Oh, we're gonna be there next month, whatever." And she's like, "Oh my God, please let me know." And we ended up talking about food, and we're like, "Hey, we have this incredible dish called arepas." Like,
oh, I love that dish.
Yeah, Venezuelan, delicious, right? And she's like, "Oh my God, I don't know what it is, but you guys should come and cook it at my place, right?" And we're like, "Okay, sounds good." So month goes by, we travel, we get there, right? And shout out to Monica, by the way. And she texts us like, "Hey guys, I know that you're here. Like, can I pick you guys up? Like, let's go." And we ended up at her house cooking arepas with the entire family. She has 4 incredible kids, incredible husband, and we ended up moving to her house for the rest of the stay. We stayed there for like 4 days. Incredible connection. And then we ended up going last day. Like, they took us out, I think it was on a Friday, right? And this is to your comment on the beer, right? I'm like, "Hey, what should we do now?" And they don't drink, but I didn't know. And I was like, I'm like, "Oh, well, I mean, we should go to, grab a beer somewhere here." And they're both like turn around in the car, and they're like, "Luis, we do not drink." And we're like, I felt like the world was like swallowing me, right? And it was part of like who they are as a family. And I'm totally okay, right? But Venezuela,
honestly, they were more okay with that than him. Okay,
I know.
He became all awkward. And
I know.
don't worry about it.
I know.
You don't drink water? No, I'm sorry.
And then we ended up going for these incredible cookies. They're delicious, right?
I mean, they actually offered. They're like, "We can go with you guys. If you guys want to get a beer, we can go with you." Like, it's not like they're opposing to anything.
Yeah.
They wanted to hang out with us, which is what the point is. Really cool. You build this amazing relationship.
Exactly. And those are the type of people that you really want to do like business with, or stay together, or build those relationships, or being friends, right? And
on that trip, there were 3 people from that city that we've had on the podcast. All three of them, one picked us up to go and get coffee together. The other one showed us snow for the very first time in our lives. Oh,
that's right. I remember you guys telling me that. That's hilarious. I grew up in an area with snow, so
you're like, "I'm good.
He literally picked us up and drove us up the mountain, and then we were watching snow, and he was having.
I remember the pictures. I was watching your pictures in your feed. It was crazy. You guys' faces like, "Oh my gosh, I'm in snow."
Right?
Yeah,
I had like
the 2 Florida kids
shoes with no socks.
Venezuela and Florida. Come on.
Come on, guys, get it right.
And then we had Monica and her amazing family that they literally took us in for a few days. She was like, "Guys, you should leave the hotel and stay at the house." And we stayed at the house with them.
Now, Gary, how can people find you? How can people connect with you if they want to find out more about you, about your business, about coming here and recording this incredible content?
Sure, a couple of ways, obviously. StudioPodcastSuites.com is my website. That's StudioPodcastSuites with an S.com. They can also call me. I have a direct line, 904 544-2110. That's 904-544-2110, and you'll get me. I answer the phone, so it's always me. People are always surprised, like, "Hi, this is Gary. I'm from Studio Podcast Suites."
I love it.
What?
You're gonna become
so
that
cool.
Colonel Sanders, like in the, how he is like the attractive character for Kentucky Fried Chicken. You're gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, Gary from Podcast Suites. Yes, let's go."
Well, you guys, you're the owners, and you're gonna talk to people, and I think that's the most important thing.
I love it.
That's right.
I love it. Anything else you guys want to add before we head out?
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for letting me on the show. I appreciate everybody tuning in, and if there's anything I can do ever to help anybody, please just give me a holler.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Gary, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
The space is amazing.
Thank you.
I love the flow of
anytime you're back here, anytime you want to come.
Let's go.
We'll be back here tomorrow.
With that said, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Content is Profit podcast. Go ahead and follow the show on your favorite platform and on social media at BIZBROS Co.
That is right. And if Gary here today helped you move one step closer to your goal, please don't forget to share this episode and leave a 5-star review. See ya.
Bye, guys.